So that's why it's so dangerous for me to go by feeling. And if I don't feel like I want to pay attention to something in the marriage, then I can neglect our relationship. And that's where the marriage starts to die on the vine. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Family Business with the Alessis, where family is everybody's business. And today it's Mary and I in the podcast booth like we're on our back patio with a cup of coffee.
I love it.
Talking about family and issues that go on in family.
Yeah.
And this particular subject matter, it can't get any bigger than this.
No.
So take it from this perspective, all right? I like hunting.
Yeah.
I like going out and killing things. So the inspiration of our podcast today is how to kill a marriage.
You're going to want to listen to this one.
All right. Kick us off. What are we going to be thinking? What's the mindset behind this particular episode, babe?
Well, the mindset is to know that there are things you can do for your marriage to flourish, but then there are some key things that if they're allowed in your marriage, just get ready. It will destroy and kill and murder your marriage.
Yeah.
And these are the things we have to highlight. We have to be fully aware of and avoid at all costs.
Yeah. Marriages just don't die.
No, they don't.
Somebody kills it.
Absolutely. It could be a slow death.
Neglect, yeah.
Yes.
It could be a slow death, which I think most of the time seems to occur.
Right.
It just doesn't go from 1 minute, it's lively, filled with life.
Right.
It's out there enjoying it. You know, that's what marriage should be. It's just rewarding. It's so fun and it feels good. To then the next day, all of a sudden, it was
It's
murdered.
just over. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
No.
No.
Somebody over time, because of neglect, has allowed something to come in. It's a slow death of a marriage. And what was meant to bring you such joy, I mean, from a biblical perspective, a spiritual perspective,
yes,
we believe, as the Bible says, it's not good for a man or a woman to be alone. So what did God do? He made him a helpmeet. Now, that whole thing there shows us that on our own, even though God made us in his image, on our own, we still are not at our best. We need a helpmeet to come along and complete us.
That's right.
And from that perspective, we need to see then that one of the greatest gifts given to humanity is marriage. And we believe marriage is that institution that is established between a man and a woman that gets married. In that, you get the blessing of love.
Yeah.
You get the blessing of affection, of intimacy, of sex, procreation, all
partnership.
of that, partnership,
right.
all of that is huge. And it brings something very satisfying to an individual that nothing else on this earth can give you.
No.
So when God makes it so beautiful for a person, we got to see it's one of your greatest gifts.
It is.
So then why is it, though, that marriages don't last?
Well, I think going into it, people think I'm going to marry my soulmate. And I think the most important decision you make is the person you marry.
Yeah.
But then we go into marriage, and for some reason, because we've had this mindset that my soulmate should fill in the gap, all the things that I'm not, they are.
Yeah.
So they're going to complete me from the perspective of everything I need, they're going to be to me.
Yeah.
And that's not the truth. There are things that we need to be as human beings.
Yeah.
The things that we need to bring to the marriage, to any relationship, rather than just put the pressure on the term soulmate. Like somehow this person that I've only been dating for a few years is now, I'm going to marry them and they're going to be able to read my mind and know the deepest, darkest parts of my heart.
Yeah.
I can remember when we first got married, having that mindset. I was so young, naive. Which I think women have more than men do. I think women fall to that fantasy.
Yeah.
And when I realized that there are just some things you can do in a marriage that don't require fantasy, that apply right now that brings me to that place of joy and peace. And I'm not crying, going, why don't you understand me? You don't get me. You don't understand me. Well, that's on me. It's not just on you to fulfill all my needs and to dry all my tears and understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling.
Right.
You're not a psychic. I'm not a psychic. There are things that we have to do in order to not kill this marriage, but to create a very healthy, flourishing marriage.
So, the sad part is people that you start out being your soulmate. If you're not careful, you can make them your cellmate.
Yeah.
Where now both of you are feeling like this marriage
You're in
is
prison.
constricting
Yep,
me,
it's
you
true.
know? And instead of them completing you, now it's become they've competed they're competing against you. And now it's me versus you,
Right.
us versus them. And that's not what marriage is meant. So how do we kill a marriage?
I got a
Because
few
it
things
happens,
here. Yeah.
So first is what? I mean, more or less, it comes down to what we're doing right here,
Yeah. It's poor communication.
communicating.
You don't know how to communicate with each other. And how many couples have we known over the years that will go to a counselor and say to the counselor what they really just need to say to their spouse?
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to say it without either anger or martyrdom or emotion, or don't feel like they have an environment to say it in. Sometimes they put those chains on themselves. It's not even their spouse. They're thinking, I can't speak up. I can't say what I want to say. And if you don't communicate well, and there's so many resources out there, but we know this, things that go unsaid will continue to go unsaid and become buried, and they'll fester over the years. And if you say them in the moment, you have time to heal those areas, to really come to a place of transparency and honesty. But when you don't have a marriage where either one or the other couple thinks they can be honest, or they don't communicate, you are a sitting duck for a really dicey situation there.
Well, what happens when you don't communicate is you start to believe your own thoughts.
Yeah.
And every thought that you have has to be challenged, especially when it's negative against something that is so precious like a marriage. My thoughts that could get negative about you, about my place in life, my lack of resources, all those thoughts that I have to be challenged.
Right.
Because just because I think it doesn't make it truthful.
No.
And when I look at you and I think, okay, she's not treating me this way, the right way, or she's not respecting me enough, or she's not this, she's not that. The moment I bring it up in a conversation with you, you bring the other side of the argument to the table.
Right.
Wait a minute. Just because I didn't do that, Steve, doesn't mean that I feel this way about you.
Right.
I was having a tough day, or, Steve, my hormones are a little off.
Right.
Or Steve, you know what?
I missed that. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Communication
That's right.
opens that door so that you breathe life. Because any negative thought that you constantly have about your spouse, she's not good enough. She's not like she used to be. She's not treating me good enough. Every time you hold that thought in there that's unchallenged, it brings death.
It does.
It squeezes the life
out of your relationship.
out of our relationship.
Yes, it does.
So you got to constantly work on that
And
communication.
this goes back to a conversation you need to have early on and prioritize that. And usually one member of the couple is more naturally honest than the other one. That's usually how God designs it. We marry somebody that's opposite from us. And having honest conversations, I can tell you were more of let's talk about this. I was a stonewaller. I would be more prone to be mad, and I'm not talking about it. Nope, I'm not talking about it. You made me mad. And in my mind, I didn't know that was dangerous. I didn't realize how that could eventually impact the marriage. I think in a husband and wife where the wife's the stonewaller, I could be wrong, but I think it's less dangerous than when the husband's the stonewaller, because the wife needs the husband to lead in that moment. So it's not good for either one to shut off and say, I'm not talking about it. Leave me alone. I'm going to take the room. I refuse to even come to terms with this conversation. The damage you're doing, that's number one. The damage you're doing sometimes cannot be undone. So prioritize honesty, openness, and do not neglect one another in this relationship. And communication's key.
Yeah. Well, neglect is another death nail.
Oh, it is.
It can kill the relationship just by neglecting your spouse but the whole relationship.
Right.
Neglect more or less wants to look past something that could be an issue.
Sure.
If you're finding uh, a loss of feeling, because you shouldn't get you may get married by feelings because you think love is a feeling,
Right.
but
you don't stay married.
You don't stay
because
married
of feelings.
because of feeling.
No.
But feelings play a huge role
Sure.
in the way that you can connect and communicate.
That's right.
I hate to bring the whole hormonal thing into it and testosterone thing into it.
No, but you have to.
But you better know why you feel a certain way.
Sure.
Hormones and testosterone has a lot to do with the way we feel about each other on a daily basis.
It's true.
On days where we're really feeling it for one another, we can tell that our levels are
Everything's
great.
balanced.
But once that feeling or that experience is over, then the hormones and the testosterone may not be there to support the feeling.
Right.
So that's why it's so dangerous for me to go by feeling. And if I don't feel like I want to pay attention to something in the marriage, then I can neglect our relationship. And that's where the marriage starts to die on the vine.
And neither one can feel neglected, because neglect is a different experience for the wife and it's a different experience for the husband. We experience it differently.
Yeah.
But man, it is so dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's a death knell for sure.
Hey, disrespect is another
I was going to say disrespect. Man, is it different for the wife than it is for the husband? What you hear as disrespect, I did not mean it disrespectfully. I didn't know. And I remember when you
see that look you just had on your face. I wish people could see the look you just had on your face when you said that. Because to a man, a look that could be just a look can be interpreted as disrespect.
Absolutely.
When the wife's not meaning anything.
Because it's dismissive. Well, I know. The looks, that's a whole nother time. Can we write that down for a future podcast? The looks. The looks are bad because they interpret for us and what we think our spouse is saying.
Yes.
So in my mind, I did not understand that things I would say were triggers for you because they were disrespectful. And I can remember we'd sit around with other couples and we'd joke about things. Can you believe she said this to me? And your guy friends would go, whoa, man. And I'm there going, what are you talking about? That is bananas. I am not being disrespectful. I had to learn. That's how you heard it. And all men, not just you. You weren't crazy. And it was the same in reverse. What I saw as disrespect might come across in my mind as criticism.
Right.
In your mind, it's, I'm helping you.
Yeah.
What do you mean I'm criticizing you? I'm trying to help you. I bring a problem and you're trying to fix it. I get all upset. What do you mean you're upset? I'm trying to help you. I didn't ask you to help me. I asked you to listen to me. Listen to me? Well, now I can see after 37 years of marriage how stupid that is. Because we come to the table with what we need, not with what does my spouse need. We come to the table with the way I need to hear it.
Yeah.
And you learn over time, in order to keep your marriage alive and not kill it, that to not communicate, to neglect, to be disrespectful is one of the most toxic setting environments. You can use disrespect so quickly and it'll trickle down to your kids. So they're disrespectful to the parents. And there's no order and there's no honor. And respecting your husband doesn't mean a death to what you think is correct and what you think is right, or I have to submit and bow my knee. That has been completely perverted, I think, in our understanding of it. But there is a way that a man hears through the lens of respect, and you watch it on the ball field, how men talk to one another. If you want to know how to get your husband to respond, not you, but me, other women, if you want to know how to get your husband to really respond well to you, just see how do men talk to each other. They don't interrupt them. Men do not interrupt each other.
Oh, I don't know. These Latins down here,
it's very different.
If you're talking, they're just talking right over you.
It's sit with the Latin women.
No, let me say it this way. You're right. When a guy does over talk another guy, be careful because that could start a fight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pushing, shoving, right.
So that
in a man's world.
I don't even think women, other than the sexual side of who they are, even factor in disrespect. Women aren't wired, respect me, not respect me, other than their bodies.
Yeah. That right there is a great conversation to have.
Yeah.
Simply having dinner, glass of wine, whatever, and looking at each other and saying, hey, do I ever disrespect you? And let the spouse talk.
Yeah.
And don't try to defend it, but listen, observe, because we don't know what we don't know until somebody puts a light on it. It's good to have that question.
Because when you do realize, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, my bad. Is that disrespectful? I'm sorry,
no,
but I touched you.
At this age, I just forget what I'm going to say. Don't laugh at me like that now.
It happens to me too. But the truth is, the more you love your spouse and you're learning about your spouse, the more tender and sensitive you are towards them.
Mm-hmm.
Not just so that you get a good outcome.
Right.
Because you don't want to hurt one another.
Right. I think another great conversation for the woman to ask the man is, do I neglect?
Yeah.
Am I neglecting you? Am I neglecting our relationship in any way? Especially when kids are young. Am I putting more attention on the kids than I am to you?
Oh, yeah.
And those are great conversation starters when we're talking about at the beginning of this whole thing about how important communication is. That's great conversation starters.
Especially when kids are little.
Yeah.
We were sitting at a restaurant Sunday after church, and I happened to look over because this was something that never would have occurred to me in a bajillion years until we went through it, and then we've watched other young couples go through it. And I'm looking over and I see this man and woman, young couple with this like 18-month-old baby boy. And the husband is just sitting there like he's alone at the table. And the mother is just kissing and playing and loving all over this little boy, just showering him. And the father's just watching it. And he wasn't smiling because, when there's a balance, you want your wife to shower your son, obviously. But I looked at him and I thought, I wonder if he's thinking, man, that's a lot of love that she's given him. And she doesn't even hold my hand. And I would have never on my own as a woman or mother ever thought about that. As a matter of fact, the younger Mary would have said, that is ridiculous. That's her baby. Of course, that husband, he's just being, how selfish. Why don't you pick up the baby and hug him and kiss him like that?
Yeah.
But understanding the heart and the mind of a man and the need that he has to be loved and doesn't have that same intimacy with the kid yet.
Right.
It grows there.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a little.
Well, I would
insight.
say this, that a husband doesn't matter. It would not matter to him if she was doing that to her son or her daughter.
Right.
As long as when they get home,
she's giving him that same love and affection.
And affection, which then leads us to this, something else that'll kill a marriage is resentment.
Oh.
And that's because he won't say something or she won't say something.
Yeah.
They harbor it in their heart.
Yep.
They form an argument in their mind. And then because they won't discuss it, get it out in the open. And if it's an issue, then get help with a counselor or a therapist. Then resentment starts to build.
Yeah.
And with resentment, I can remember that, Mary. I can remember fighting through every one of these issues that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
On our road to 37, almost 38 years
They're
of marriage.
Part of marriage.
They're part of marriage. And you've got to get through that. So resentment, though it's normal, it doesn't mean your marriage is dying on the vine just because you feel a little resentment. It dies on the vine when you don't deal with that.
Yes, you got to catch
but
that.
You realize, wait, that's just normal. It's something that every couple goes through. So let me deal with it. Because the last thing you want to do is live with regret because you didn't deal with your resentment.
Yeah.
You didn't communicate better. And now you're dealing with divorce. And now you're dealing with the two kids, who's getting who. Then you bring a new spouse into the relationship and that new spouse doesn't understand your kids.
Right.
There's more pressure. So you let that resentment build. And it leads to divorce. Your marriage is done. And all it took was you being able to sit back and say, wait, let me deal with this. Resentment can come from unresolved conflict.
Yeah.
You never resolved what the issue was. And now you resent the person.
And if you don't know how to resolve conflict, we've done podcasts on resolving conflict. We encourage you to go back, watch them. Send us a note, comment here that you want more information on resolving conflict, because one in the couple needs to take the lead. Somebody within this marriage needs to take the lead. And when you hear something that man, we are on the road to murdering this marriage, and somebody throws you a lifeline just with a podcast like this, hey, you got to resolve these conflicts. You cannot leave them out there. Your marriage is headed for the cliff. Mm-hmm. You don't get to live with it. It doesn't magically disappear.
Right.
Your spouse doesn't magically change overnight. I remember asking my mom one time, because my parents divorced when their marriage was 25. And I remember telling her, man, I just get nervous when I think, what happens when I'm married 25 years? And she goes, it's not the number. It's the people. It's the mindset. Your dad and I, we didn't get it together. How we made it 25 years, she's told me this many times. I will never know how we made it that far. And that really spoke to me. Wow, we are not powerless in this. We aren't. We have the power and the ability to look at our marriages and look at our mirrors and see the areas where we either don't have the resources, we don't know how, or we're just refusing to. And if we want to save and breathe life and resuscitate our marriage, which gives you the most beautiful, the next part of your life will be the best part of your life. Mm. If you can take these principles and start applying them, they're not easy.
Right.
You got to fight. Let me tell you, I think the biggest battle I've ever fought is not with you. It's been with myself. Mm-hmm. The internal fight within myself and my pride to know I needed to do something right. Just do the right thing and the right blessings will follow. But I had to get over my own pain, my own hurt, my own pride, what I thought I was entitled to, my pettiness and my selfishness to do the right thing. And then marriage has its own rewards.
Yeah. I remember my mom saying to me before we got married, Steve, just remember this about your marriage. And I've said this a number of times. She says, you're going to get married and then you're going to look at your spouse down the road within a year or so and you're going to question, did I marry the right one? And the only reason you're going to question that is because of conflict that you're facing.
That's right.
But just remember this, when you're looking at her thinking that, Mary's looking at you thinking, did I marry the right one?
Sure.
You can't help that.
No.
It's just part of it.
It helps you to know that.
Yeah, it does.
It helps you to know that.
Conversation, talking about it. And, I say that, you don't take it personal.
Not at all.
A person that would take it personal, it's like, wait a minute, come on, man, get over yourself for the sake of this relationship.
Well, because you're not being honest. You've had the same thought.
Come on. True. Okay, so this was something you said recently, because now intimacy does play a part in how to kill a marriage. If you don't have intimacy in your marriage, it's dead, and you're in trouble. You really are. There has to be this intimacy, this sex that you share with the person. God put it in every man to have a sex drive.
That's right.
Now it's up to him to control that to the best of his ability. He put it within every woman to have a sex drive. So if that's not there, you need to get some assistance from a doctor.
Yeah.
But you said something recently that, man, I wish I could have gone back and knew that back in the day, because this was an area that could have been a place of resentment, because especially with raising kids, I wanted it more. I wanted sex more. And you were not at that season responding. So you said to me, though, you said, I'll be honest with you. It's not because I wasn't turned on, Steve. You said, it's because I was just tired.
I was tired all the time.
I was lazy about sex.
Yeah. And it makes me almost want to cry thinking that it hurt you deeper than it hurt me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. I'm like, what's one more day? What's one more day? Oh my God, doesn't he know how tired we are? I haven't stopped. I got up at 5:30 this morning. It's 11:30 at night. We're exhausted. There's no way. I mean, I would go to sleep thinking, he'll sleep it off. I didn't realize the way you were interpreting it was she doesn't want me.
Not so much she doesn't want me, she doesn't want it. And I would be so ticked at you. I would be mad arguing with you in my sleep.
So you
couldn't wake up the next morning
still
mad at you.
And then I'd go, you're mad at me because no, I'm not. And it would just boom, 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 boom.
No, you wouldn't say anything.
Sometimes I did.
But that's where the whole resentment thing comes in. That's why I brought that part up.
Yeah.
Because it could fester in here.
Absolutely.
Instead of me saying to you, Mary, I need you.
Right.
I want you,
Yes.
but I need you to share. I have to have sex with
Right.
you.
Yeah.
And you couldn't look at me and think, well, you're just oversexed.
No.
And we would go through the whole thing. I
Right.
mean, I would read up on it because I'm like, I want to be right here.
Right.
I don't want to get off. And I know the drive within me could have gotten me off, which would have destroyed our lives, destroyed our marriage, destroyed our ministry. I knew I couldn't play there.
Right.
So I would go study and I would sit back, and I'll never forget. I heard a guy say in a teaching similar to what we're talking about now, says, hey, if you're hungry in the morning and you eat breakfast, don't penalize yourself for being hungry at noon and then being hungry for dinner.
Right.
It's the same with your sex drive. And you shouldn't, and we had this conversation, don't punish me, Mary, because I'm hungry the next morning or the next night.
Right.
I need this. And what I have found over the years, this is stupid, I know, but on this matter of sex, I really needed that intimacy with you.
Yes.
Me.
Absolutely.
For a guy who's not supposed to need anything
That's
and
it.
ever be needy,
Yeah.
I had to realize and communicate to you, baby, I need this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that helped us because intimacy needed to stay in our marriage. And we find ourselves stronger today, and even in that area of our intimacy, stronger today than when we were younger.
Absolutely.
Because we realized it's not just about the act.
And some people can say, "Oh, we have more time."
Let me say that again. Hold on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Don't move on.
Finish. Yes.
Sex is not just about the act.
No, it's not.
There's something, and I don't want to mess this up, but there's something that's almost spiritual about it because of that connection, which is why it's so important for young people to save that for the marriage relationship.
That's right.
That's why God says, save it for the marriage bed.
Agreed.
Because there's something sacred about it that feeds you in an area of your life that goes beyond just the physical act.
Oh, absolutely.
What it gives a couple. So I'm hammering on this.
Right.
Because if you want to kill your marriage,
neglect this part.
You neglect this part.
That's right.
It's needed. And if you don't have the drive for your spouse, my buddy, this is a terrible thing to say, but he would always say it, and it was true. If you don't take care of your wife, your neighbor will.
Yeah.
And if you don't take care of your husband, his secretary will.
Yeah.
That is a need that has to be met. So is porn meeting that need if you're not taking care of it with your spouse? Most likely.
Yeah, especially today.
And if you're in porn, then you've already replaced your spouse with somebody that's not even real.
And it doesn't fill that void.
It doesn't.
It doesn't do what intimacy and sex does with a husband and wife. It does not fill that need.
And not to be crude, but if one member of the relationship is not in the mood, it's okay. They don't have to be in the mood.
Right.
If you are in the mood, you have to have that conversation to say, well, will you at least take care of me?
Yes.
If I'm in the mood?
Yes.
And the other partner needs to say, yes, I will.
Okay. I agree. I think we should have paid for the subscription for that piece. But anyway,
for
what
any
I was going
marriage
to
that's been
say
on life support, here we go.
Okay,
We're just giving it some life.
What I was going to say, and you interrupted me. No, I'm kidding.
Now.
I interrupted you. What I was going to say was, it's so easy for young wives and young mothers to say, I'm so tired, I don't have time, I don't feel good, blah, blah, blah. When you're really avoiding the truth, yes, you're tired and your libido is low, okay? So what happens though is in the communicating of one another, and I'm just going to say this is my last little piece I'm going to add. If a husband would say to his wife, I miss you and I need you, where however I can get you, I love you, please save some of that for me. And I know we get mad, when our husbands do that, like, don't love our kids more than you love me. The best thing to say is, I cannot wait to be with you tonight. I am so looking forward to being with you tonight. And if she says, oh, I'm so tired, just know she's just giving in to her fatigue and not make it more than it is. But a wife, and the Bible says that her body belongs to him. And I know we don't like that, but here's the reward from that. That when you say yes, and you don't just say yes, you pursue. You've got to be one that pursues as well. There's an exchange that happens. My friend and I have talked about it many times. Whenever you say yes and you didn't want to, it's always the best yes you ever said. Something happens. It's like the best encounter we've had. It's the most beautiful moment we've had. So just always be in a posture to say, I don't want my husband to ever feel like I neglect him in the area that he needs me physically. I don't want you to feel that way. So let me stay in a posture of talking about it, finding ways. And just because you have more time, like we have more time, doesn't mean it's going to naturally be there. It's something that has to be cultivated.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was Nancy Reagan who started a campaign against drugs that said, just say no. We're starting a campaign for sex. Just say yes. Which then leads us to this, Mary. Unrealistic expectations can kill a marriage.
Yes.
And that just simply comes down to, I believe, again, why communication is so important. Because we look at our spouse, we may expect something from them. If we're not getting it, talk.
Yeah.
Just don't have this unrealistic image in your mind of the way your spouse should be treating you or behaving.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what they're feeling and thinking and going through.
That's right.
So the communication is so important because it eliminates having those unrealistic dreams that you put on one another. And I used to put that on you. That was a challenge. I was expecting something from you at a certain season of our life that you were trying to give me, and it was burning you out. And the pressure of it was not just the pressure, kept you under pressure and under the weight of it. When I finally took that weight off of you, you were who I married.
Right.
Which was that happy, fun-loving, joking, make things quick and fun in life. And I lost that for a while because you felt the pressure of unrealistic expectations that I was putting on you.
Right.
Which, to this day, I don't ever want you to be anything but happy.
Yeah.
Because it pays off for me.
Absolutely.
When you're happy.
And you're clear about that almost every day.
Yeah.
You almost over-communicate that. And that really brings us to the most beautiful place in our relationship we've ever been in, probably in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Meaning the last 10 years have been the most beautiful.
Yeah. It pays.
For sure.
It pays to press through
the
hard times in your marriage and stay married. It pays to pray for your spouse, pray for your marriage.
It does.
To surround yourself in a church environment so that you're encouraged by other healthy couples and families. It pays to be able to do that. And your future generation, your legacy, says a big thank you to you for being able to do it. Because here's what we want for you, and we hope today has given you that. We want your marriage to thrive.
Yeah.
And to do so, there's some great ways, things that you can do personally.
That's right.
And you'll be amazed at how your marriage comes back to life. If it's been on the verge of death, there's life, and you will feel so much better because of it. Thanks for watching another episode of The Family Business with the Alessis. I've had fun with this message today.
Me too.
All right. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, and click on the notifications bell so you can be notified for all of our future videos. And if you loved today's topic, we have plenty more. And you can click on this link right here to watch all of our videos so you can learn why family is everybody's business.